Okay, let's just dive right in. I want you to picture this. A single aircraft releases a cloud of, say, 100 tiny drones. Now, instead of being controlled one by one, they actually think together. They act as one giant distributed brain to completely overwhelm an enemy's defenses. Or how about this? Imagine a solar-powered craft that just stays up in the stratosphere for years on end, acting like a pseudo-satellite that never, ever needs to land. We've really reached the frontier of unmanned warfare. So today, we're going to explore how these incredible technologies are fundamentally changing the tactical landscape. So here's our flight plan for this explainer. We'll kick things off with the fascinating concept of swarm intelligence. Then we'll move to the real heavy hitters, modern combat drones. After that, we'll explore the very tactical niche of loitering munitions. Then we'll look at the small but mighty mini and FPV drones. And finally, we're going to soar up to the stratosphere with high-altitude pseudo-satellites before a quick recap. So let's start with one of the most incredible fields in robotics right now, swarm intelligence. The core idea here is that individual units, individual drones, they act autonomously, but they do it as part of a single collective entity. So what does that actually mean? Well, a human operator might control the entire group, but inside that group, the drones are making their own decisions. You can almost think of it as a collective organism, with every part working towards a common goal without needing direct individual commands for every single move. And the Perdix drones are a perfect real-world example of this. See, they aren't pre-programmed individuals. They literally share a distributed brain for decision-making. And this is the crucial part. There is no leader drone. So if one gets lost or taken out, the rest just adapt and keep going with the mission. This was actually tested successfully way back in 2014, when the US military released 103 of these drones from fighter jets, and they all communicated with each other to mimic a surveillance mission. Pretty amazing. All right, so from those tiny swarms, we're now going to scale way up to the heavy hitters, the large armed platforms. And that brings us to our next section on modern combat drones, things like UCAVs and Reapers. So what exactly is a UCAV? Well, it stands for Unmanned Combat Aerial Vehicle, and it's basically an armed drone with no pilot on board. And because you don't need all the systems to support a human, cockpits, ejection seats, oxygen, they can be designed to be much smaller and lighter than our traditional manned jets. A prime example of this is the MQ-9B Reaper. This is a hunter-killer drone designed for high-altitude, long-endurance missions, and its endurance is just staggering. It can stay airborne for over 35 hours at a time. Think about that. And it's not just up there watching either. The Reaper packs a serious punch. It can carry 4 Hellfire missiles and, on top of that, about 450 kilograms of bombs. This gives it a really significant strike capability. It's got an unfueled range of 2,000 miles, and when you combine that with its incredible endurance, it becomes this incredibly persistent and powerful asset for both surveillance and strikes. Now, to put the Reaper in context, let's compare it to an indigenous development, the FWD-200B. The Reaper is what we call a high-altitude, long-endurance, or HALE, platform. The FWD-200B is a medium-altitude, long-endurance, or MALE, system. So what's the difference? Well, HALE platforms, like the Reaper, they fly higher and for longer periods, which makes them perfect for strategic surveillance and long-range strikes. MALE systems, on the other hand, operate at lower altitudes with shorter endurance, making them much more suited for tactical roles closer to the action. Okay, next up, we have a really interesting category that kind of occupies a unique niche right between a cruise missile and a UKV. These are loitering munitions, sometimes known as suicide drones. So here's the crucial difference. Unlike a missile that just flies straight to a predefined target, a loitering munition can hang around in the air, it can loiter, over a specific area. This lets the operator wait for a hidden target, or maybe a time-sensitive one, to emerge before actually committing to a strike. So the basic logic for how they work goes like this. First, it's launched. Then it enters its loiter area, just circling and searching. If a target is detected, it moves into strike. But, and here's the key bit of flexibility, if no target appears or the mission is called off, it can be recovered, often just by popping a parachute. And there are several examples of these systems out there. You've got the Sky Striker, which has a 40-kilometer range and can be called back to base. There's the Warmate, which is a portable system really designed for special forces. And then there's the indigenous Nagastra, which has a 30-kilometer range and also uses a parachute for a soft recovery if the mission's a no-go. All right, let's shift our focus now from these big strategic systems down to the tactical level. We're going to look at the much smaller mini and FPV drones that are used for close-range tasks. So mini-RPAS, that's remotely piloted aircraft systems, are smaller drones, usually weighing under 25 kilograms. Their defining feature is being runway independent. What that means is they don't need a traditional airstrip to take off. Instead, they can be launched by a catapult or use vertical takeoff and landing, VTOL, which gives them a ton of flexibility to operate from really confined spaces. We've got indigenous examples like the Asteria AT-15, a hybrid VTOL drone that weighs less than 8 kilograms, and the Switch, another hybrid system with a 20-kilometer range. And then you've got FPV, or first-person view drones. These are incredibly low-cost, super agile, and a lot of the time, they're single-use platforms. Their main advantage is just sheer numbers, right? Their simplicity and how cheap they are allows for mass deployment. The big trade-off, though, is their vulnerability to electronic jamming, which can disrupt their control signals and make them totally useless on the battlefield. Okay, for a final category, we're going way up to the highest operational ceiling of all these unmanned systems. We are talking about HAPS, or high-altitude pseudo-satellites. This chart really gives you a sense of just how high these things fly. HAPS operate up in the stratosphere, around 18 to 20 kilometers. That is nearly double the altitude of commercial airliners. And this unique position lets them fill that critical surveillance gap between high-altitude drones and actual satellites in orbit. But their most remarkable feature, by far, is endurance. Because they're solar-powered, they can potentially stay airborne for months or even years at a time, providing this constant, persistent, uninterrupted surveillance. It's also really exciting to see indigenous progress in this field, with the ARCA platform recently demonstrating a 27-hour endurance flight. All right, that was a lot to cover, and it brings us to the end of our deep dive. So let's quickly summarize the key takeaways from everything we've talked about in this explainer. So, in a nutshell, swarm intelligence, it's all about collective, leaderless decision-making. The MQ-9B Reaper, that represents heavy, armed, long-range strike capability. Loitering munitions, they bridge that gap between sensors and shooters by waiting for the perfect moment. Mini-RPAS provide tactical, runway-independent surveillance. And finally, HAPS are those solar-powered pseudo-satellites offering a persistent watch from way up in the stratosphere. I'll leave you with a final thought to reflect on. We know that FPV drones are super low cost and can be produced locally. So why do armed forces still invest so much money in much more expensive systems like the MQ-9B Reaper? What can the Reaper do that a whole mass of FPV drones simply cannot? It's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.